Remember the jam?
Oh yeah, I'm old enough.
Anyways, Xioneida, thank you for jumping on the show, Como. It's been almost, what, 20 years since we hung out?
At least.
Let me tell you a little story. Obviously, you know, I did pretty good in dancing.
Yeah.
You know, I like to think I'm a badass. But there's a joke my brother and I always tell. There was a joke where he overheard you saying one time, Armando's a great dancer. I just can't dance with him. Because at the time, I used to do all the moves, but I didn't really care so much about the beat.
Yeah.
So I would have all these badass moves if you see them from the outside, but like if it was to the music, I was off beat. So the point of the matter is my brother used to laugh at me because I started dancing off beat, and he'll always remember when Xioneida says, he's a good dancer, he's a great dancer. I just can't dance with him. But it was because of that, and I never told you that. But
I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry.
no, it helped me get on beat, and I'm actually gonna tell him I'm gonna go to the Giants game with him. Anyway,
Okay.
so I thought I'd go into that little story that if I can make it happen, anyone else can make it happen. So that's the whole point of that joke.
Okay.
So talk to us a little bit about who you are for our viewers, your upbringing, what you do, and how you got into your next step.
Okay, so my name is Xioneid Ruiz, and I am born and raised in Panama.
There you go.
And I came to the United States when I was around 12, so middle school. And fast forward 35 plus years, I'm not going to get real technical there, but you know, I have my family, I have my career established. And one night, some ladies from work said, "Oh, you know, let's do a sip and paint." I don't know if people are familiar with what that is, but you just go, it's very informal. There is someone there doing some paintings, and you have a drink in your hand and just kind of really chill, relax. Y, you know, la pintura sale como sale. You know, most of the times it's not to be, you know, for it to be perfect. And to be honest, my first one was absolute trash. Like it was just trash. But I had such a good time, and I came home and I remember saying, "Oh, wow, that was fantastic. I would love to, you know, be able to paint a little better." And the very next day I went to the supply store and got like all of these supplies. And I tried to recall what the, you know, instructor was saying, you know, all the different techniques. And I redid my painting, and it came out so much better. And it's like, I just got hooked from there.
Okay, so let's take a step back because your upbringing, you're Panamanian.
Yeah.
How was it growing up? You grew up over there and you came here fairly as a young adult, correct?
I was in middle school.
Middle school. Okay, so no, that's fine. So what were the challenging things that we overcame back then? Because you came older than me, but I still have the same experience of coming to another country, having to learn a different language, different customs. Talk to us about that.
I think for me, the biggest challenge was definitely not knowing the language. You know, having to learn the language was really the biggest barrier. And then I remember being in the 7th grade and having to do all those ESL courses. You know, all my classes were in ESL, and people not being able to put me in a box, Armando. And I think that you probably have had some similar struggles with that in the beginning, because, you know, here I am. Outwards, I look like a Black person, but then I don't speak English, and then I speak Spanish, and people are so confused by that. So I think that was also a big kind of hurdle in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I know, and I mentioned that as embracing it because obviously now it makes you more proud to be a Latina, Afro Latina. I guess I'm getting used to that term. And just me, it's like me. Like I guess what I'm trying to say is that overcoming challenges should be the goal, not identifying the challenges.
Correct.
You're right. In today's day, I think La Juventud, if they had more stories like you and I saying, you know what, we went through that. It's normal because no society is perfect. However, we grew up in an easier society in some ways because we didn't have social media.
Exactly.
The bullying and what have you. Like, you grew up basically being Panameña. Did you ever say, I'm Afro-Latina, or now you have to identify with some people who say Latinx? No, we were Latinos, you know, era nicaragüense, even though tengo sangre china, you know? Exacto. So I want people to look at that and take it the right way. I want people to say, look at Xioneida. you know, she's one of the OGs, and
Yeah.
find ways to overcome the challenges, not dwell on the challenges, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, good.
And that whole thing, like you're mentioning, like the whole Afro Latina thing, like that's just within the last, I don't know how many years that's kind of like a thing, because, you know, before it was just I'm Panamanian, you know, but everybody wants to be able to
Label us.
label us and put us
Hey, look,
in a box.
and I mean that in a I don't like, again, whatever it works to get the job done. I'm not a control freak, but
Right.
I basically I think we're too caught up on the labeling than like, let me just get to know you.
Yeah.
You know, for example, your kids are Nicaragüense, right?
Yes.
So what are you gonna say? You know, you got to identify both sides, both cultures, because there are differences that people should maintain. So I'm really, again, nothing bad against the Latinx community, but I think you miss out on the opportunity for your kids to say, my mother's Panamanian and my father's Nicaragüense. And you know
Exactly.
what? Sometimes I like the Maduros or the Patacon. That's a beautiful thing to embrace. Para
Exactly.
to be labeled. All right.
Exactly.
So the one was a language barrier, but you overcame it. So you became a professional, correct? In the
Yes.
industry you work at. And then it wasn't too late where you wanted to pursue your passion. You liked it, but what made you want to turn into a business?
So I started, like I said, you know, COVID, I know was obviously for all of us a horrible period. 2020 was just horrendous. But for me, and I know that many people like myself, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, if you would. For the first time in my whole professional career, I had the opportunity to work from home. I have never, ever had the luxury to do that before. And I'm currently still working from home. But if you remember those early months, March, April, May of 2020, we're actually in that lockdown where, you know, nobody's going anywhere. You could barely just, you know, try to come out of your house to go do your grocery shopping. And my kids are all of a sudden all at home. You know, we're all here and we have all of this time. My kids kept singing some rap song, bored in the house, bored in the house, bored, you know, that's, you know, how they were. And I just took that time and I just unleashed all of this creativity. And I just really taught myself how to paint. I did tons of research and try and error, just doing all these different techniques, looking at videos, just doing all kinds of stuff. And I did a gazillion paintings during that time. And so all of a sudden I said, oh, you know what, let me just upload them onto Facebook. And I did that. And little by little, you know, I started getting, you know, people saying, oh my God, that's so good. Are you going to open an Etsy store? Are you going to sell it? Like, I like that one. Is it for sale?
Okay, real quick.
Yeah.
That's an awesome tip because your passion turned into creating, you uploaded, and then you found out that people enjoyed it and they're willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
I think that is key for people to understand that there's a supply and demand in business.
Yeah.
It made it easier. So when people say, how important is social media? Let me ask you that.
It is 1000%, like you need it, especially for something like this, because without it, no one would know that all of a sudden Xioneida, who is X years old and has a career, is now an artist and is painting and has, you know, artwork for sale, and that she can accept commissions, and that you can hit me up and let me know, hey, can you paint this and can you paint that, and I can make it happen for you. Like without social media, absolutely, it wouldn't go anywhere.
How much time do you spend a day on social media growing your brand?
Right now I'm just starting because when I was doing it on Facebook, you know, I was just uploading. But now I just barely started Instagram, maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Have you seen an increase on Instagram on your brand? The followers, engagement?
Yes, I have, in just that really small period of time. So that's something that I'm going to be working on, growing it, you know, increasing the followers, you know, making sure that people understand that they can purchase just by hitting the DM, you know, letting me know, and we can do the transactions that way. So there's a lot still more to learn, but I'm finding that the response has been a lot faster than what I was expecting.
So the responses have been quicker than you expected. Would you say that was the inspiration to say, I can do this? I can create a store and start selling my product?
For sure. And that, and the feedback from the people. And actually also feedback, you know, Instagram has got amazing artists. You know, I'm just like blown away by the stuff that I'm seeing. and to get artists that are already established and have their own stores and have hundreds of thousands of followers actually follow me and message me and say, I love your work, this is amazing, whatever.
It's kind of a validation.
It's a validation. It's mind-blowing.
You got it. A validation from the public and a validation from your peers in this new art industry.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, so that's good. I see some paintings in the back. Talk to us a little bit about what you paint that inspires you.
So yeah, I paint various different subjects. My palette is always very bright. I use a lot of bright colors. I can't get away from that. That's the Latina in me, we like bright stuff. Obviously, if somebody commissioned a painting or something and, the interior decor in their home is pastels or, whatever have you, I'm going to adjust to whatever, we come up with creatively. But me, myself, when I think about painting something, my palette is going to be bright, and that's just an automatic thing. So I like to do portraits, and I like to do still life. I love painting flowers and fruits and stuff like that as well. I'm big into folk art. I really, really like that. That's just really something that, brings me a lot of calmness, and it helps me to remember where I come from. And I also like beachscapes because I'm in a perpetual vacation all the time in my head.
Yeah.
The art that I create is feel-good art. It's cheerful. It's something that's going to put a smile on your face. I know that there are a lot of artists that do political stuff or current events, and that's great, and I admire them. But that's not really my thing. I just like to paint things that would
feel good. Feel good.
Yeah.
Bold colors. Vacationistic. I agree. When I cook, I will tend to cook a cuisine that I would love to be in that country.
Yeah.
Or I have been to that country and it's a moment.
Yes. Yes.
I'm with you on that. Okay. So what do you see the biggest challenge now launching this next parallel line of your business? What's the biggest challenge you see?
I think the biggest hurdle is going to be first of all, is supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, like I said, I do have a career, still that's, that I tend to, and I have, a family. So it's just balancing everything, learning if someone says, I need this, can you make this in a specific time frame? Knowing my boundaries and knowing what I can and can't do in a specific amount of time. And not losing the joy in doing it because now you're stressed out because you have to produce a certain amount.
That's a good problem to have though, right? So that the pearl is timing. I think it's important for our viewers, whether they be winemakers, whether they be chefs, whether they be comedians, whether they be artists, that time management is key, correct?
Exactly. It is, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about something positive in your business that surprised you, because you're talented, and you have an idea of when you paint if it's good. Kind of like if I cook something that's disgusting, I know it's tough. So what was your aha moment to say I could build a good business out of this?
I think again, going back to you see it, and I think my husband, for instance, I think he's like my biggest cheerleader. And I think that he was probably the very first people to identify, like, okay, you have some hidden potential here. Like, this is something, me decía, ¿sabes qué? Tú los tienes adentro, no los has explotado. And he was one of the first people to know.
I think what he said was, ¿sabes qué? Vos los tenés. Because
vos los tenés adentro, no los has explotado. Yeah. Exactamente. And I'm thinking, this is my husband, he's just gassing me up, I said, yo no te voy a estar diciendo mentiras solo para que pases el ridículo, Te estoy diciendo porque es verdad, and I think that was that, and then the validation from people, like echoing what he was saying, like, oh my gosh, like people come over here, by the way, the house is kind of like a little mini museum up in here. There's paintings everywhere, and they're like, oh my God, you did that? And they're like so blown away because they've known me for years, and this is something that's relatively new, that's kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's like in real estate. It's not what you think your house is worth, it's what the public is willing to pay.
Exactly.
It's not what you think your dish is worth. It is if consumers willing to take it, love it, pay for it, come back, and even Yelp on it. I think it's important that people understand the business part of it, not just the cultural, the art side. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Okay, let's have some fun questions.
Okay.
What's your pet peeves about this new industry that you're in your own business?
Let me choose my words carefully here. I think having to educate people who may not be savvy with what fine art is.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You want to make it accessible, and that's 100%, right? So you want to make it approachable.
You want to make it accessible, you want to make it approachable, but at the same time, they need to understand that this is not a print that you can go buy at Ross. That's mass produced, that you and your neighbor and your mom and everybody can have the same print. And so they're not understanding price-wise, you know, I got this one at Ross and it's this big and it cost me this much. You should be able to match that price.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Just because someone makes a steak doesn't mean it's going to cost you the same that if we cook somewhere, you know, at a vineyard for winemakers and art, you know. I get what you're saying. So education of the consumer, and I think that's an ongoing issue anyways with any business.
Yeah.
You know? All right, well, what's your pet peeves in society?
Just people not being kind. You know, we're having a huge issue with that lately. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people not being kind and just being bullies.
It doesn't require common sense to be kind.
Exactly.
And not be a gente fea or come mierda.
Exacto. Pero no todo el mundo tiene common sense.
Exacto. Because we grew up in hard knocks. Family, house, school, ahora tenemos las redes sociales, right? Exacto. So that's pet peeve in society. In 2 years, what would you like to be? Where would Xioneida like to be in 2 years?
Artistically, we're talking about, right?
Your life, give me your life.
Well, yeah, in 2 years, I see myself definitely growing my brand, getting, you know, a lot more savvy, learning a lot more techniques, having a lot more diversity in my paintings. And definitely I see this thing explotando, si quiero usar las palabras de mi marido, and just taking it to the next level.
Yeah, well, you dominate both languages, te presenta bien, you know, and you now know you're just starting the Instagram with your posts of your product, but telling your story is very important.
And so figuring out how to do that in a way that isn't off-putting is...
Well, that's, you're taking a step forward by being on this podcast, right? It's a virtual podcast, we put it on YouTube, we put it on Instagram. Do you imagine if people had access to Frida Kahlo before?
Yeah.
Right? And that's the way you have to think, is having access to these artists or chefs or, you know, profiles ante before, right? Because you follow their journey and people get inspired by your story. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Couple good fun questions and we're done.
Okay.
If the world was ending tomorrow, and I have to phrase that because I asked someone that before, but they had done time in prison, so they thought, am I going back to prison? But if the world is ending, the last meal on earth, what would it be?
Something cooked by Armando.
There you go.
And I mean that, I'm not gassing you up. I'm looking forward to tasting some of the stuff soon.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what? It'll be honor, but I'm glad, because who would have thought 20 years later you'd be an artist and I'd be in the cooking game, right?
Nobody. We used to go dancing, 3-4 times a week?
Oh my God, the days. Yeah. You think you still have it?
Oh, for sure.
You just
don't lose it. Es como caminando, montando la bicicleta, eso no se olvida.
Yeah, we don't lose that. And even when we went through that little era where people were going crazy, breaking their necks, we're like, that's not us, right?
That's not what we do.
We kept it OG. Okay, so then anything cooked by me, that's good. I would probably make you un churrasco with tostones and an aguacate salad, because I have to have tostones. I like my churrascos thin, and of course, ensalada aguacate is my bomb. All right, 3 people, dead or alive, that you'd love to have dinner with. Who are they and why?
Jesus, for sure.
There you go.
I have so many questions.
It's the first time anyone has ever said Jesus. That's awesome.
Let's see. Maya Angelou, so inspirational.
Deep.
1 more person. And actually, let's go with Frida Kahlo. I love her backstory.
I see art influences you.
Yeah, it does.
That's pretty dope. Okay, so that was usually the last question, but I have to ask you this. For those that are having challenges growing, starting their brand, or have their brand and got to scale, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't ever doubt yourself or your talent or what you're doing. Because I guarantee that there's at least a handful of people going, wow, I can't believe you're doing that.
Yep, I agree. Listen, Xio, I appreciate you. I'm glad that we're connected, and we're going to stay more connected because I know that we should probably think about collaborating a food and wine display. So I'm going to stay with you offline, and let me tell you, I'm so proud of you, and I'm glad that and I'm glad that we both aged well, because there's some people from the they just did, they must have thrown away the mirror in 2009. Pero gracias a Dios que estamos saludables, and all that. But anyway, so thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure. I am beyond proud of you. You're doing some big things, my man. Good for you.
Thank you. And I'm going to post on this stuff where they get a hold of you, and let's work on a pop-up with your art.
Okay, that'll be fantastic.
I'm going to call you after that. So thank you again. Okay, Xio?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.